Loving others sounds simple enough, but application of this basic teaching of Jesus is not always easy to put into practice. Today we explore the instructions from Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 38 about how to love our enemies. In the vernacular of today, we often speak of falling in love as an emotion that we feel. If we were to wait until we fall in love with our enemies before acting for their benefit, we would clearly fail to meet the standard that Christ has laid out for us. Loving others, and in particular loving our enemies, therefore, is not a feeling, it is rather a decision. Likewise, loving our enemies does not require us to approve of their actions or even to submit to abuse or mistreatment. The author Carey Kirkwood, in his book titled The Power of Blessing, explains that we are called to bless one another. We're called to bless even our adversaries. Blessing others requires us to look beyond current circumstances in an effort to see the potential that God has placed in others, and then requires us to act in their best interests. Jesus instructed us to love our enemies, and then he added specific directions for accomplishing this command. Take a look at Luke chapter 6, verses 27 and 28. The instructions came in three parts. Do good to those who hate you. Number 2, bless those who curse you. And number 3, pray for those who mistreat you. Let's take a look at what these 3 steps require. What does it mean for us to do good to those who hate us? Jesus elaborated with examples. He advised that we are to follow the golden rule, that is, do unto others as we would have them do unto us. That's Luke chapter 2, verse 31. If we would like mercy and understanding and respect, then that's what we should give. After all, we reap what we sow. We read that in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Additionally, Jesus advised that we should provide for the needs of others, even our enemies, without an expectation of return on our investment. Luke 6, verse 35. This is agape love and is sometimes referred to as charity. This describes the specific type of love. See, for example, in 1 Corinthians 13, particularly in the King James Version that uses charity instead of love. Such love keeps no records of wrong. It does not deny, envy or boast. It is not self-seeking. Jesus' second prong of instructions for loving our enemies was that we are to bless those who curse us. We will from time to time receive insults and bear the brunt of offenses directed against us. In those circumstances, we must look beyond the moment and view things from God's perspective. In Luke 6:29, Jesus gave 2 examples of how we bless those who curse us. He said, if someone slaps you on the cheek, then turn to them the other cheek as well. In Jesus' time, a slap on the cheek was a euphemism for receiving an insult. On such occasions, we are to return evil with good. 1 Peter 3:9 reads, do not repay evil with evil or insult with insult. On the contrary, repay evil with blessing. That means that we are to speak well of others, even those who speak poorly against us. We're not to return insult for insult. Instead, we are to seek the best and the highest for other persons. Scripture tells us that when we provide goodness for our enemies, that can have the effect of shaming an offender into remorse. See, for example, Proverbs 25:22 and Romans 12:20, both of which refer to acts of kindness for an enemy as heaping burning coals or shame on the head of the adversary. The other example Jesus offered on how to bless those who curse us was this: if someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Luke 6:29. Victor Hugo's classic musical Les Miserables demonstrates this concept. The thief, Jean Valjean, was apprehended by the police and taken back to the bishop's house where the silver had been stolen from. The bishop, seeking to provide mercy, greeted Valjean by saying, I gave you the candlesticks too. Here, take them. Sometimes we must patiently bear offenses, weighing things from God's perspective to determine how we can do the most good. Bearing offenses, however, does not mean that we should never confront evil. Jesus demonstrated tough love in the temple with the temple money changers, nor does it mean that we must quietly endure abuse from another person or refuse to defend ourselves in physical attacks. Love never means joining in or promoting a wrongdoing. Aspiring to unconditional love does not mean providing unconditional approval. Acting in love means acting in the best interests of another. That's explained in Philippians 2, verse 3. But sometimes that requires that we confront a wrong. The third advice Jesus gave for loving our enemies was that we are to pray for those who mistreat us, Luke 6:28. By lifting our adversaries in prayer, we're more likely to view that person with an attitude of mercy and forgiveness. Jesus was specific: do not judge, do not condemn, forgive, because we receive with the same measure that we apply to others. We read that in Luke chapter 6, verses 37 through 39. So how are you doing loving your enemies? Let's consider these questions for introspection. Question number 1, are you doing good for those who hate you? Who and how? Are you blessing those who curse you? When have you given your time, your materials, your prayers to someone who opposes you? And question number 3, are you praying for your enemies? What specifically is your prayer? How would you change that prayer, knowing that we receive blessings with the same measure that we give blessings? Loving others is a tall order, particularly today in this world of extreme division. Jesus' instructions remain relevant today because we need now more than ever to be able to truly love our enemies. Loving others sounds simple enough. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, we need the plant.